I hope you are doing good. So let me introduce myself. My name is Merve Travelsi. I'm the sales manager at Warsaw English Tunisia. And this is our second online guest speaker. And would like to seize the opportunity so to announce that our whole learning experience at Warsaw English is now available 100% online. In these difficult times, our priority is the health and safety of our students, our staff, and communities in which we operate. And we also want to make sure that English learners can continue to study. So we have now successfully made our English learning experience available 100% online. All right. So after our last online guest speaker last week with Dr. Karim Taga, this evening we are hosting another online event. So this time it's all about the reflections on lockdown exit strategies. We're going to talk about Tunisia's case. So before starting, let me go through the outline of our online events. So first, we're going to talk about the different crisis management strategies in Tunisia. Second, we will cover some strategies to exit the lockdown. And third, we will go through what needs to be done and cared for on a period from 2 to 6 months to make the exit successful. So please don't hesitate to share your questions with us on our Facebook Live. Feel free to write your comment. So Ishraq, my colleague, who is tutor at WhatsApp English Manzah 6, she will be in charge of transferring your questions to our guests at the end, and we'll make sure to answer all of them. Okay, I'm so excited, Alice, to be here tonight and to have the opportunity to introduce our speakers. So today we have Dr. Suhail Alwiri, who is the past president of the Health and Social Affairs Committee in the Tunisian Parliament. And live from New York, we have Dr. Emine Hila, who is part of the COVID-19 preparedness and responses team at the UHS, the University Health System. We are grateful for their presence among us today. And I would like to give them the chance to tell us about themselves and their experiences. So let's start with you, Dr. Suhail. Hello.
Hey, hello, everybody. And
Good evening.
thank you for inviting me to this webinar. Okay, I'm a doctor. I'm a pediatric surgeon. In fact, my specialty. I was graduated from University of Brussels and on my MD, and then I shifted to make pediatric surgery also in Belgium. I had some training in the United States in Chicago at the time, in '87. In my career, I worked in Tunisia for a while, in the end of the '80s. And then I shifted to United Arab Emirates. I was the head of department of pediatric surgery at the military hospital at the time for 17 years. It was a very exciting experience because the pediatric surgery was at the beginning in the Emirates at the time, and we built it even with my colleagues there and we trained people. It was very exciting. I returned in Tunisia in 2011, just after the Spring Revolution, I involved myself at the time in civil society. We created a group called Open Gov Tunisia. Our dream at the time was to make more transparency and more governance in Tunisia and more, as you see now, more use of the technology. In fact, it was a deception for me at that time and since that time. But now, these days, as we have this crisis and people start to understand the meaning of using digitalization and everybody is using these days, even the government, with some delay, in fact. But in fact, it's hopefully, I hope this time we'll start really to work on it and to make the unique identifying. And I worked on it when I was MP. I was MP for 5 years, from 2014 to 2019. I decided myself to not represent myself because I think maybe it's better to try something else and to let other people go make this job. That's all. Anyway, I'm involved in a lot of in the COVID these days with the Ministry of Health and with the WHO. I'm consultant with WHO these days in Tunisia. What else? I don't know. That's all. Okay.
Thank you so much, Dr. Suhail. So from New York, we're having also Dr. Amin Hila, sorry, Doctor. Thank you for your presence.
The mic is not working.
It is working now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Suhail. That was. I was listening. Quite an interesting career and a lot of different things. So very impressive. I did somewhat the other way around. So I did medical school in Tunisia. I graduated in '97, and then I moved to the United States. Took my boards, the famous USMLE Step 1 and 2. That a lot of people have been talking about and different things over the last few years. There's been a lot more interest, but in those days, not a lot of people were doing it. I tried it. It worked out for me, passed my exams. Actually, I should say for us, my wife, Hinda, came with me. I dragged her to the US. She didn't want to go, by the way. She didn't want to leave Tunisia. So we had made a pact that we gave ourselves 2 years. If either of one didn't make it within 2 years, we were going back to Tunisia. So I guess that pact worked, but we're still here. So we did our boards. My English was much better than hers because my mother is actually from the US. My father was Tunisian, but my mom is American. And in fact, lives down the road from me here and has been in isolation for 6 weeks, not seeing her grandkids. So she's not very happy. But anyway, so we came, we did our residency. Hinda took a year extra to improve her English. We did internal medicine, both of us in Philadelphia. And then I moved a year ahead to Medical University of South Carolina for my GI fellowship, and then she joined me a year later and did her rheumatology fellowship there. In fact, we were the first 2 non-Americans to ever do a fellowship or a residency at MUSC. The South is a little different. So great experience there. And then I did a lot of research. My mentor is a guy who just retired in his mid-80s anyway, but he is, he kind of, if you will, created the specialty of esophagology, if you will, or disease, studying the esophagus. And so I did a lot of research with him. We had NIH trials, all kind of stuff. And I thought I was going to follow an academic career, to be honest with you. And when we were coming towards the end, a classical academic career, I mean, we interviewed for jobs, and Hinda was more interested in practicing medicine. So my first job was actually private practice. I did that for about 3 years here in Binghamton. And then very quickly, because that's what I like to do, started doing research with residents and fellows. And then it expanded. And then I got hired to be the director of research. That was my first like kind of administrative job. And it was downhill for me from there. And I started piling them up, So 3 years later, we were having some problems in our residency programs in the hospital. So they hired me to be the director of what is called GME here. And then from there, I became director of medicine. And then last year, I became vice president for our system for academic affairs and physician engagement. So that's kind of my path. It's been all actually post-training in the same area, not, I moved around in jobs in the area, but in the same town and called Binghamton, New York, where there's a big, Binghamton University is a huge SUNY campus, State University of New York, with a lot of biomedical engineering research. So that's kind of our link there with them that is very, very strong. We also have there's a medical school in Syracuse, an hour away, that we split with them. So their students study in Syracuse and in our hospitals. So we're called a clinical campus for them. As I mentioned to some people, I now actually have Tunisian residents, two. Very proud of them. One of them comes from the medical school in Susa, Abdelhamid. He did anesthesia in Tunisia, and then now he's doing internal medicine here. He was voted best intern when he was an intern, and he's a chief resident. So he graduates in a couple of months and is going to join us as an educator and a physician. Second one, Mohammed, is from Tunis, and he is an intern now and also doing very, very well. And we just had results of the match, gosh, the week before the world fell apart, or the week after, whatever, somewhere in the middle of the beginning of COVID-19, and another Tunisian guy matched with us. So we have about 90 residents and fellows. That's my summary.
Okay, this is amazing. Thank you so much. Okay, so I think we should start our talk. So let's start by the first point, which is the different crisis management strategies in Tunisia. So Dr. Suhail, would you like to share more with us about it, please?
Okay. As every part in the world, we had also the SARS coronavirus too, and we start to hear about it as everybody when it was in China, and the idea at the time was everywhere in the world that this virus will stay in China and it will not be something spread all around the world like in the past the SARS and the MERS. But when it started to come to Europe, when it started in end of January in Europe and in France particularly, because we have a big relation with France, we really start to think what to do and to check everywhere what was the decision to stop the entrance of this virus. And by the way, at the time in January, before we started anything, we had some Tunisian living in China, especially in Wuhan itself, and they have been brought back by the Algerian military people, and we confirmed, we looked them down here in Tunisia for 14 days, and it went well, and they accepted it very well. And the end of January, we decided to start with the control at the frontier on the airport, and we installed this thermic camera in Tunisia. It was in 25th January. It was the only procedure we had made at the time, and well, it's not the best one anyway, but we still didn't respond as a critical thing coming to Tunisia. We just started something which is recommended at the time. And the first case in France pushed us to make this measure. Days passed, and we had some problem in Tunisia, as you know. Maybe we had this government, the past government, the new government. People are too busy with this political story. But when the government, the new government, the actual one with Ilyes Farfer came in place, the things started to become very worse in Italy, and people start in Tunisia to think really to take a decision about. And I was one of the first who's talking and shouting to stop any flight from Italy and from France at the time, and to close the schools also, because I was reading a lot of the scientific papers coming from China, and the discussion at the time was: is the child, the young people have carry they are not sick, but are they carrying the virus or not? And on the literature at the time, there was some indication that maybe they are carrying without any symptoms. And the decision was taken on March. I think I don't remember exactly the date, but in the mid-March we decided to really enter in the beginning of the precaution measure, the measure And the first measure was to say to ask to people who's coming from abroad to stay at home. And this, in my sense, it was the first mistake. The second measure was to ask people to wash their hands, to avoid to stay on the kind of distanciation, social distanciation, and to avoid any things we are making in the normal life, like kissing or shaking hands. Or, this is the first measure, and it was spread by the media at the time. It was one of the people going in the media to talk about that. But things, as we saw at the time, it was not going in the good direction. We start to have, one day, we start to have what we say the transversal infection, the contamination. And when it started at that level, discussion was what to do now, and the decision was taken to make a complete lockdown for all the population at home. And it was around 15 March, I think, the decision was made. Now almost 1 month and some days to stop the progression of the virus. What is the strategy adopted at the time? Everybody know about it. Is the strategy is flattening the curve. We don't want in Tunisia to have this story of having a big amount of people infected, because, as you know, our hospitals and the structure, health structure in Tunisia are not well equipped. We don't have enough beds for ICU, intensive care unit, with the respirators. That's why we decided, even it is very conflicting for our economy, because Tunisia, it's not the same like in other countries in Europe, or they have kind of reserve. We don't have it at all. Our situation is not very good economically. But anyway, there is choice to do either health or economy. We choose the health. And I think, in my sense, it was a good decision, because after 1 month and some days now from the lockdown, we are in a situation that we really flatten the curve. We don't finish the story. This is not the end. We know that it's not the end of the story, but still, we don't have much cases. We can handle them easily in our hospitals now. Almost our numbers now, we have just yesterday we have around 32 people who deceased. We have 900 people who catch this virus, positive COVID positive, and we have around 100 and something, and 120 in the hospitals now. Not all in intensive care unit. I think it's around maybe 30 or less in intensive care unit. The situation is under control, let's say, but this does not mean, and this is my scare now, because people think we are the problem is solved and everything is going well. This is not true at all, because we are how to say it? We are controlling it, but if we say, okay, let's remove everything, we go and for our normal life, the situation can be completely worse. And today or yesterday, I went outside just to check because we're still in lockdown until the 3rd of May. But people are moving outside. They are not believing this story because they feel it's comfortable. Things are going well. And I'm trying, when I go in the media, radio, or television, to try to explain to people this is a strategy which shows that's why we don't have much cases. But if we leave, we stop everything, it can be worse, like in what happened in Italy and France. And we cannot afford this in Tunisia, even socially and even medically. We cannot afford a situation like that. This is our actual situation now. We are thinking about after the 3rd May, but we can talk about it later on if you want, if you have any.
Sure. Dr. Amin.
Impressive. Thank you, Dr. Suhail. Dr. Amin, the word is yours. Do you have something to add?
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, a very different situation here, particularly in New York State. Yes, we are all trying to flatten the curve. We have done it successfully in our area, but mostly because we started isolation at the same time as New York City, but New York City already was in a dire situation. I think a very important point that Dr. Alwini made is the difference in healthcare systems. That is correct. I think in the United States, the availability of ICU beds with vents is very, very different. My understanding is that in Tunisia, there's about 250 available vents, more or less, depending on what you look at. In Binghamton, where we live, which is a 300,000 person area, if you will, just in Binghamton, we have 150.
Okay.
Available. So you can understand the difference.
Yeah.
So we can vent a lot more people percentage-wise. In fact, when you look at the rate of vent per population, the highest one is the United States in the world, followed very closely by Germany, both in the 30s. The US is somewhere in the like 35 per 100,000 people. And so if you do your math, you come close. Actually, we are a little bit more vent rich in this area. Germany like 32, then Italy and France are like 10. And then China is like 0.3. And so you can imagine what that means. Now, that being said, that's not the only important thing. Another thing is availability of intensivists, right? So to take care of patients. In our area, again, of 300,000, a little bit less, we have 7 intensivists. So you could compare us probably to, I don't know, 300,000 Benzarat maybe or something like that. And we have 7 intensivists who can take care of these patients. And there's also anesthesiologists in the US. Anesthesiologists and intensivists are not the same thing. So it's medical intensivists. In fact, in the US, most of them are pulmonary specialists and medical intensivists. And if you add anesthesiologists who also obviously can use vents, we have about another 25 doctors who can manage vents. So, I'm just telling you that, so the worry was different. However, that being said, yes, the ability is here, but in certain areas like New York City, they got completely overwhelmed because their geography is very different. New York City is the most densely populated city in the United States. I mean, people are on top of each other, and you actually can't go anywhere without touching something. And that's the problem. And so, in fact, the week before the start of the whole COVID-19 isolation and lockdown, if you will, I was in New York City. I went with my son to New York City. We had tickets to see an NBA game. And I was already thinking, coronavirus at that point, because it was around, there were some cases here and there, and we carried, hand sanitizers. But we figured out very quickly that we were overwhelmed because you can't go anywhere without touching a door to open, an elevator button, whatever, and you're doing that with tens of thousands of other people. So that's what really was the problem in New York City. It's a highly infectious disease with very little herd immunity. And I mean by that, very few people actually get coronavirus. Kids seem to be more immune, and probably they get it at school, and that's why they do better, it seems. And so that was the concern. So once New York City started really going bad, very quickly we went into coronavirus response mode. In fact, I've barely done anything other than coronavirus for the last 6 weeks. Literally, probably 95% of my time is spent on that because we were not ready, right? So we didn't have isolation rooms and negative pressure. I mean, I think out of our 500 beds, we had like 10 negative pressure rooms, and suddenly we had to create negative pressure room, create antechambers, create all of this stuff, open a new ICU. Literally, we created a whole new ICU that we didn't have because we didn't know if the surge was coming. Are we going to get hit? Are we going to get hit? And at the beginning, the challenges were at all levels. We didn't have PPE, personal protective equipment, or we had very little PPE, let's say. Like N95 masks, at some point we had 3,000. That's like one day, and you're done. At some point. In fact, now we have 60, 70,000 of them, but we're still using one mask per person per day. because we don't know when we'll get them. So the N95, we wear the N95 and we put a surgical mask on top of it. And so the surgical mask protects the N95 from getting splattered, etc. We didn't have PPE, as I said, and medications were getting scarce because the supply chain had been disrupted from China, right? Mm-hmm. So things were, getting problematic. We reacted, we started, so we divided ourselves into groups. People go and buy things. At some point we were asking community, can you sew masks for us? We never used them, but, we got desperate to that point. Luckily for us, the real peak surge never happened. So we kind of very quickly flattened the curve because this is a very sparsely populated area. It's it's kind of mountainous. People concentrate somewhat in the valley, but the valleys are narrow. Most people live up in the mountains. Like my street where I live is about 3 kilometers long and there's 15 houses on it. So big lands, and so that's social distancing, right? It's perfect social distancing. I can't see my neighbor from my house. So, if you stay home, there's a much better chance of not coming in contact with anybody. So that helped us a lot. What else was a big challenge for us is limited testing. Testing at the beginning was almost unavailable. Now we do have it even in-house, but it's still limited. So mostly we send it out to Albany, New York, or to Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. So literally we have a plane that takes off every day and goes to Rochester and takes samples to get tested. And so organizing all of that was not easy. We did it. We currently have in our hospital anywhere between 10 to 15 patients every day, depending on the census. People go home or don't make it, but thankfully not very many people died. In our county, so, states, every state in the United States is divided in counties, maybe like Mu'tamdiyah in Tunisia, if you will. And in our county, we have currently 210 confirmed cases and 6 deaths. One of my GI fellows actually, who was positive, and he caught it, and he was home for 2 weeks, kind of sick, but he's mid-30s, pretty healthy guy, plays soccer all the time. He thinks soccer saved him. So it's around. People get it. A lot of employees in the hospital got it. But it's still okay. Our biggest concern are nursing homes, where the old people are, and there's outbreaks already in 3 nursing homes in town and a jail. Those are, again, high concentration people, right? So that's kind of what happened here in a summary. I think that, the economy even here is in shambles. The hospital is going bankrupt, for that matter. The system, we're losing millions and millions of dollars every month. I think April, we're hoping we only lose $15 million. Hoping, So it's a problem, but obviously, like Suhail said, the economy here is very different. The country is able to sustain that kind of a hit. For Tunisia, it's a whole other equation. So the economic price for everybody is going to be, for everybody in the world, is going to be tough. And I think that's a big concern, because people who will want and need, or countries who will want and need help, are not going to find the help that they would normally, because everybody's suffering. So.
Yeah, I see. Thank you, Dr. Amin. So you mentioned protection, whether personal or government-based in Tunisia. So one of the strategies is social distancing, as you said, and the lockdown, which is absolutely new for us and for everybody around the world. So when and how do you think it's possible to exit now this total lockdown and all of this stuff? What are the strategies to exit?
To exit, the exit strategies are tough. Dr. Suhail, go ahead.
Suhail, Dr. Suhail, please.
Okay. It's a good question, in fact, because I want to raise a point, because maybe people think we are our knowledge on this disease and this virus is deep. In fact, we are just don't know anything, to be honest with you. This everybody has to know. It's a new thing. Okay, there are the viral diseases we know, but especially this virus, every day we discover something. Even the treatment, maybe Dr. Amin can talk about it, but even the treatment, we have a lot of problems with this virus. And that's why the decision, nobody can give you 100% good decision. We are all thinking about strategy. It's the basic strategy. We are really in the basics. The basics, the lockdown, really, we are in the basic, like they have made almost, just to remind people, in 1918, when there is a Spanish or Chinese influenza. At the time, they almost used the same things we are using today. Even we have a lot of scientific advancement, technological, but we still a lot of problems to fight against this virus, coronavirus. About the lockdown, look, the situation. There is one point. There is 2 points. In fact, we have to do before to go to the lockdown in Tunisia, especially. Till now, we didn't make much tests, and it's very important to know exactly where we are, where we are sitting. We have almost around 10,000 tests done today. On these 10,000, we have, let's say, 1,000 to be around figure people who have been infected. But the population of Tunisia is 12 million, and there is people who may be escaped from the control. And that's why we have to make a kind of randomization, let's say, just to know exactly where we sit. And this is what we are doing now with the kind of not very precise tests, because we are using we call it rapid tests. And this is the immunoglobulin test to check if there is any contact with the virus, or even any immunity, even we're not sure about the immunity, because a lot of papers says now that the immunity, it's not lasting long, but it's not clear. A lot of things are not clear. But anyway, we are doing this. We started in some region, Tunisia, Tunis, all Tunis, with all the governorates. In the south also, we started also to make these tests, and normally we have to do it in all Tunisia. It's kind of random study, like when we are doing a pool, in fact. People remember the election, we are making a pool just to know which is the party, which is the higher one. It's almost the same to have a figure to know exactly where we are. This is the first point. Hope we are not far from our actual results. And I think we will be not far, because one point is that we know that this virus, when you infect people, 80% of the population will be okay. And they will stay home, and even they don't, almost 50% of the people, they even don't know they have catched it, because they feel well. But the 20% with the resting, the 20% who are really sick, who will go to the hospital, they cannot afford to stay at home because they are not well at all. I'm not talking about the ICU. I'm talking about people who need some oxygen, some care. And when you see the number of people going to the hospital in Tunisia, we can make a kind of calculation to know exactly the number. And that's why I say 1,000, almost people infected. Maybe a little bit more, but anyway, we are not. The figure are like that. I don't think we have 10,000 of people who have been infected and we don't know about them. And this is not maybe. I'm not sure. That's why you are doing the test. Second thing, we have to have enough PPE. As Amin said, not only for the hospital. The hospital now, the situation is okay. We have in our stocks, let's say, more than 1 million of masks and gown. I think at that level it's okay, but still the population, if they go outside, they have to wear. This is one of the decisions to be taken
exactly
soon. We will make kind of deconfination, decontainment, but it will not be something 100% of the population will go outside. No, it will be limited of some population for administration, for people who have small shops, and they need to work to eat, in fact, and they will have to wear masks. And for this we don't have enough till today, but we are working. The government is working on it from bringing from abroad, it will be difficult because, as you know, all the countries in the world are trying to buy these masks from China and from somewhere else, and we are trying to make them here at home. It will be local fabrication. It will be enough, I think. And we have enough industry in to say in English, textile. I think we say it in
textile. Yeah.
Textile, yes,
yeah.
The word, and they will work on it. In fact, we need around 30 million almost masks to give to each one in Tunisia, 2 or 3 masks to change, and we keep running and we keep making them. This is the prerequisite to go to the containment, and it will be, as I said, the head of the government said, it will be intelligent the confinement. That's what the meaning of that. It's meaning that we'll keep some people more than 60-year-old at home. This is one of the decisions. The sick people for sure they will stay at home, and will allow people, administration maybe not all the people, but maybe a third of them, and to replacement by time to go to the work. It's a huge work. Believe me, it's a huge work for the government to make this kind of decision, because it's not easy. We're not used to it at all. Nobody is used to it, by the way. It's not only Tunisia. I think everywhere is the same situation. But there is a prerequisite. When we go to the confinement, I think it will be most probably in the mid of May, maybe the 4th May. It will be the beginning, and we have to be aware about the fact that if we see any how to say it, rebound of the cases, we have to go back. This is called the dance, and the hammer of the dance. This is the word they're using now. The hammer is the lockdown, and the dance, we go outside and we check if everything is okay. We stay working. If we start to have a peak again, we go back to the lockdown. And it's kind of dance with the virus till the day we found the vaccine. This is everybody's waiting for it and hope we get it as soon as possible, but it will take time anyway.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Dr. Souheil. Dr. Amin, so what needs to be done to make the exit successful?
Nobody knows. That is the truth, right? So what this virus,
exactly.
The biggest thing that this virus has taught us is that we don't know. We panicked, rightfully so, made a lot of decisions. And when I say we, I mean human beings. I'm not talking about the US, I'm not talking about Tunisia, I'm talking about we're all in the same boat. Obviously, it teaches us something about this interconnected world that we live in. Why a place like New York City got hit so hard is not just the concentration. New York City has about 1,000 flights a day to Europe. A day. Between Newark Airport and JFK. And so and in fact, when you study the virus, you find that the one in New York City is mostly European, meaning, it came from China to Europe to the US, didn't come the other way. The West Coast is more connected to Asia, so, California, etc. The East Coast is more connected to Europe. But anyway, we don't, absolutely, like Dr. Souheil said, we don't know. In fact, what we've been saying is we're inventing the wheel as we're going. Like every day you're kind of, new information. Okay, so you literally change a decision you made yesterday that seemed logical yesterday, and today you're like, oh, that's not good. In a lot of little things. My personal feeling, to be honest with you, having been involved 6 months, and please, I am not an infectious disease specialist. I am not a virologist, but I am a physician, and I've been reading all of this stuff and discussing it with we have every day multiple meetings on the scientific side, sitting around saying, okay, what did you find out? What did you find out? And we discuss, and so on and so forth, because the science is being invented every day, right? So if you don't do that, you're gonna very quickly be behind. My personal feeling is that the actual incidence in the population is much higher. In fact, I don't think the testing is good enough, because I think people who may be even transmitting it may not have antibodies. I mean, literally, if that's, you know, I'm talking, let's be more precise, may not have detectable antibodies, meaning the body took care of it and it didn't mount a big reaction, and the antibody level is below detection for a lot of the tests. If you see, a lot of the antibody test detection needs a lot of positivity to come positive, if you will. So I think the incidence is much higher. I think the mortality that initially was mentioned as high as 5%, on a population base will probably end up being close to the flu, somewhere between 0.1 to 0.5%, somewhere in that range. I think what the end mortality is going to be. The difference is, this is a virus that we have not been exposed to, so there is no immunity in the community. The problem with the idea of flattening the curve, and this is, you know, from a purely intellectual point of view, is that the more you flatten the curve, the longer you're going to have the problem. Right? So if you let it do this, you basically kill everybody who is going to die with it and move on. Obviously not, this is science fiction and not reality, obviously, but I'm just saying, you know, it's important to understand that by flattening the curve, we're keeping the virus as an epidemic. Not, the virus will always be around, but as a problem much longer, with much longer damage to the economy. But at the same time, you know, eventually less people will die, right? That's why we flatten the curve, because if people were doomed to die anyway, probably flattening the curve makes no sense. Just let it happen, and you thin the herd, if you will. However, why is flattening the curve very important? Because it's giving us time to learn, to understand, and to develop treatment, vaccine, whatever, you know. So we're saving lives. So literally, if you think about a 1% mortality, let's just pick a number, right? A 1% mortality in the United States is 3 million people, right? If you assume everybody will catch it, even at 80% people will catch it, you're still talking about 2.5 million. Cut that in half to what I was saying, maybe 0. We're still talking about 1 million plus people die. In Tunisia, we'd be talking about hundreds of thousands of people die. So we can't do that, right? And so we need to get the time to develop treatments. We started in my hospital. We did it last week. We gave 2 people serum with antibodies in it, so we're collecting it in the US already. That we're not collecting it in my institution. The Red Cross is collecting it, you know, the equivalent of Hilal Ahmar, right? So they collect it from people who already were sick and have antibodies. It seems to have given good results in the 2 cases I saw. So there is a treatment with embryonic cells, actually, that is being currently tried. It's actually came out of Israel. There are trials. We have not, we are approved to use it for humanitarian reasons if we have a patient that qualifies. There are a couple of other medications that are being developed and tried. So there's a lot of things, but nothing has yet resolved the problem. We don't have, I mean, ideally what you need to resolve this problem is 1 or 2 things. One is if we can get a vaccine, then we're done with it. You know, it becomes the yearly flu and so on and so forth. So an effective vaccine. We can probably have a usable vaccine maybe in 4 to 6 months, maybe, if we're lucky. The problem is that we won't have the data to tell us if it's good enough or not that fast. Really, to have an effective, good vaccine, you would take about 1 year to 18 months. And I don't think we can afford to wait that long. Plus also a safe vaccine and all of the other things. The other thing is treatment. I mean, if we had, you know, a pill you can take, you know, take a Z-Pak, right? Zithromax for 3 days or 5 days and you're done, that would be great and we wouldn't worry about it. But we're not there. So I know I digressed and I talked about, I'm just trying to show where the problem is. And I'm explaining what I mean by saying we don't know. And that is the reality. However, I think the dance is the right thing that Suhail mentioned. So you have to open up a little bit, watch the effect, collect your data, and then, oh, good, open up more. Not so good, maybe go back. That's all we can do.
Okay, my last question, because you talked about the immunity earlier. So is that true that the only way to eliminate the virus is through the herd immunity, meaning that somewhere around 60 or 70% of the population will have to be infected and gain immunity before the virus is defeated? So I don't know. I think that we have to wait to gain this herd immunity, and the better strategy is to wait for the vaccine, right?
Well, I mean, vaccination is herd immunity, right? I mean, and that's the idea. The problem with the concept, I used the word herd immunity, and I knew somebody was going to get me for using it. In this case, so herd immunity is a statistical concept. It's not a medical concept, right? And so the idea is that if you have, sorry, you said something, Suhail?
No, I agree with you. I agree with you.
Good. So it's a statistical concept, because what you're saying is that if 70 to 80% of your people are immune, then you're making sure that it's not spreading as easily. That's all it's about.
Exactly.
You know? So you're putting blocks on the spread. The issue with a virus like this is that nobody has immunity. And so one person infects one, and then the other one, you know, and then it becomes Facebook, right? You know? Suddenly you go on Facebook and you have 5,000 friends, right? So that's herd infection. Same thing, you know, it's spreading uncontrollably. I think that the world, all of the world, is going to come out on the other side of this looking very different from how it looked in February 2020. I don't think people are going to travel as easily as they used to. I think that, I'll give you a very simple example. In the US, for some weird reasons, my institution became like the test for virtual healthcare visits, because we had made a decision about a year ago to invest in it. And we were able literally within 1 week to move to 100% virtual. The only institution that was able to do that in the United States. I mean, we still see physically patients who need to be seen, obviously. I mean, you know, sometimes you need to examine them, but we are able to offer 100% virtual visits because we had already started going there. So here's my question. Are we going backwards? Like after coronavirus, I can guarantee you there's going to be a very significant percentage of people who will, especially younger ones, who will prefer to continue to meet their doctor on their phone, right? Instead of having to come to an office, sit in a waiting room, you know, all of that wasted productivity, wasted personal time, whatever it is. So that's just one little example, right? The world, so telecommuting, right? So people working from home, it's going to become a bigger thing, a more important thing. And that has a lot of downstream effect on everything else, right? So you're going to use less gas, you're going to buy less cars, you're going to go less to restaurants, you're going to blah, you know, so we're going to come out on the other side in a very, very different world. It's going to be very painful for everybody, in my opinion. Sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Hila. Okay, time flew by super fast, so we're talking about this topic, and I think that we have many questions from our audience. So, Shaq, please, let's check some the questions.
Yes, we have several questions from our students today. First question is from Asma, and she wants to know whether it's true that 80% of people are going to have coronavirus in the near future. If so, is our country capable of limiting all of that with our very limited resources? What do you think?
Suhail, this is yours.
Okay, yeah. Look, the 80% will have it. It's not. Let's say if you open things and you don't make lockdown, maybe we'll go to 60%, 65%. This is what we are talking about. And it's herd immunity. But even there, just one point, I mean, maybe you heard about it. Even about the immunity, you are not sure we are immune for long-lasting.
Yeah, that's another problem.
It's another problem, but it's that's why the vaccination, it's even something very not easy to find. Anyway, I think in fact
previous coronavirus vaccines have failed, right? So
exactly, agree with you. That's why maybe we'll have large immunity. It's when we open at the end, maybe you have to be. I will just give an example. Maybe you heard about it. I mean, that's people can wear the virus. They have the virus for more than 40 days without any symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
This is what we are learning days after days. But to your the question that she raised, she don't have to worry about it, because in fact a lot of people are wearing it or having no symptoms and are living with the virus. We are caring about we are caring in fact about people who are sick, who are old, and these people if they got infected, they have big problems. That's why. And even maybe we'll find the treatment. I have a hope about the treatment. Maybe we are, because we make some mistake in my sense in the beginning. Let's say we don't use corticoids, we don't do that now. A lot of people are going back on it, and we are using a lot of corticoids, and we have good results, by the way. That's what I mean in it. Because
yes.
They are using it now in the hospital.
We are too.
Exactly.
We are too. By the way,
yeah.
You know, it's a very interesting thing. It seems that this virus, it's not its own, the people who get sick is not from the infection per se, but it's from a hyper-inflammatory reaction to the virus. And so, and in fact, currently in my institution, we are trying not to intubate people. So normal criteria that we used to use, that, you know, if FiO2 drops below 92%, you get an event, you know, blah, blah, blah. It's gone. We're keeping people in their 70s, which, you know, used to give me horrendous anxiety if I don't intubate them, and they still do better. They do better if they stay off the vent. So there's hope. So you're absolutely right. If we can find something effective there in that time frame, prevent use, it'll resolve a lot of problems.
That's why the treatment is going better and better, by the way. And this is what they are using in Tunisia. Our intensivists, they are going on the same direction that you are saying about, because the experience in China, maybe we don't have. It was a beginning for them. They don't know even how to treat people. Now, with the experience of a lot of countries, we start to find a way to treat, and we have maybe less death due to the better treatment. But anyway, everybody. Look, just to answer finally the question, we are not immune against this virus, and everybody will catch the virus. His body will make a kind of immunity, hoping that this immunity will last long. That's what can I say to you?
Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, let's move to our second question. Our guests are very worried about the future. Okay, they are concerned, and Muaz wants to know whether we can live with the virus after the lockdown, especially when the economic wheel will be back to its normal activity. Will we ever able to move on and get back to our normal lives in the near future?
No, not in the way it used to be. We have to do things differently for the next probably year. So, you know, for example, we're starting to think about reopening. In fact, the governor of New York, in the United States, by the way, things are very different. It's not centralized at all. So everyone is doing kind of their own thing. And we're listening to the New York State governor, not to the president, by the way, which is a good thing in our case. No, I don't care. But so the governor yesterday said that we can start reopening, and we're talking about hospitals doing non-urgent, life-threatening surgeries, procedures, endoscopy, blah, 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 if we fulfill certain criteria. So we're starting to look at it. However, everybody who needs a procedure needs to be tested now. You know, you can't put people, you know, you can't have 20 patients in a waiting room waiting to be seen. You can't, you have to use PPE on everybody. I mean, things are, and this is just a little example here. Same thing, exactly what Dr. Suhail was mentioning earlier about the government in Tunisia will have to open up in a different fashion. So people will stagger. Some people maybe work, you know, in certain offices, you'll say, you know, no more than 1 or 2 people, depending on certain criteria. They used to be 6. So what are they going to do? Every other day? Are they going to work different hours? All of these things are going to be different. So yes, we have to open the economies because, and healthcare. So there's something I haven't talked about now that's happening in the United States, which is the fact that people are dying because of coronavirus without coronavirus. Well, here's what I mean. They're avoiding care, right? They're afraid to go to the hospital, or the hospital is not available. So we delayed their surgery, we delayed whatever. So people are dying at home from heart attacks, strokes. They're coming to the hospital instead of with a mild appendicitis, with a phlegmonous appendicitis and peritonitis, and end up with, you know, a huge, you know, surgery, end up with wound care problems. So there's that side too. So our reaction originally was close, stay home, stop. Let's figure out everything. But we can't keep staying closed forever. We need to open. We just need to open smartly and figure out how to do it.
It is exactly the situation in Tunisia. We have the same problem with people staying at home, and we can see things we didn't saw since a long time, like biliary infection with appendicitis. This problem we haven't seen since a long time, but now it's coming back because people are scared to go to the hospital due to the coronavirus. Right? Exactly. Yeah. And our life in Tunisia will change also, by the way. Just to,
the whole world.
The whole world is completely changing. Even the economy have to be changed to think about it differently than what you are doing. Even the parliament recently, they are working. In fact, I will give you something. I'm fighting 5 years in Tunisia to change the parliament from the old one, just to leave it for something official, and to go to the new one, which one you see now. If you have a look in because it was built in the time of Ben Ali, and there was resistance to it. No, we don't know how to use it, but now they went there these days because it's something very large and they can sit very far one from the other. The changing of the mentality in Tunisia is going very, very fast, unfortunately, with this crisis.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Thank you, gentlemen. Do you have anything to add about this question? Good. Okay. By the way, Dr. Amin, Dr. Abdelaziz Hamdain says hello to you. Yes, he's with us today. And our next question will be from Hamza bin Muawiyah. Thank you for the question, Hamza. He's asking about the contact tracing. He says it's one of the most important measures that helped in Asia with the coronavirus. And he asks about this contact tracing and whether we can use that successfully in Tunisia. What do you think? The word is yours, Dr. Suhail.
We are using it in Tunisia. I can answer. That's why we don't do much tests in Tunisia, because for a lot of reasons. One of the reasons because we are doing this tracing. I will tell you. You know, there is the R0, the first one who came, who saw people, the first round, the first circle, the second one, and the third one. Now we are at level of transversal infection, and each one who have this contamination, we ask them if they say the truth, by the way. This is not sure every time, but anyway, we try to find the people he's seeing, and we test everybody which have a contact with him. This is what we are doing now. This is tracing. We thought even to put this brace, something GPS, but legally we cannot use it because it's a kind of breach of our laws and liberty. But we are tracing. This is why we have only 10,000 tests, because we are doing on that purpose of the tracing people. Maybe some people are not seen because, you know, when you ask someone who's infected, who have suspicious infection, which people have you saw, where you went exactly, it's not sure they will tell you everything. That's why we are scaring about, and we want to make a test, more mass testing with tracing anyway. It will be with tracing anyway.
Okay, good. Dr. Amin, what do you think? Have you been using this strategy successfully in the USA?
Yeah, but the problem is that very quickly you get overwhelmed. So we use it. We use it especially for hospital employees. That's where we're concentrating on, and hospital patients and so on and so forth. So if a patient comes in and we didn't know they had COVID-19 or didn't suspect it, which doesn't happen that much anymore because we assume everybody's infected now. But at the beginning, we were having this, and then so we go back and figure out what's the contact tracing and test those people, isolate them, etc. The difficulty that happens is that then you're decimating your workforce, right? So that's why you have to just assume everybody's positive. But yeah, we do it, and it's easier now because everybody's home, right? So contact tracing is very easy. The minute you open up the economy, good luck. It becomes it becomes almost not feasible because, you know, you get on a bus, right?
Yeah.
Who the car 410, that's it.
Okay, it's easy to lose control. That's what you mean.
Yeah, I mean, one person infected gets on a bus with 50 other people. Exactly. 3 days later, you have 100,000 people that have been in contact. I mean, yes. That's what happened in New York City. So
yes, understood. Okay, thank you for answering the question. Our next question, is actually for you, Dr. Amin. It's from Emil Dawood. And she says, may I ask how the insurance system in the USA is dealing and reacting with all of this pandemic?
Insurance system?
Yes, that's what she said.
The health insurance in the United States obviously is very different. So there's three main types of insurances. There's Medicare, which is government insurance for everybody above the age of 65. There's Medicaid, which is state insurance for the poor. And then there's private insurance, right? And so Medicaid and Medicare together are about 40 to 50% of the population, of the patient population, and the other half is private insurance. We don't have a problem. They're covering whatever we ask them to cover. It has not been an issue. In fact, the insurance companies have been doing fine because all healthcare has scaled down, actually, right? So we're not doing stuff. So they're not spending money. That's going to change very quickly soon. So it's a very complex system. It's completely decentralized. I mean, we, in my area, have at least 20 different private plans, groups, whatever. So they have not been a big part of the COVID discussion or problems.
Mm-hmm. Okay, understood. Thank you very much, Amin. Dr. Amin, sorry. Our next question is for you, Dr. Suhail. Rafa is saying, why is the number of cases in Tunisia doesn't follow the normal distribution? One day we have 2 cases and the second day we have like 15 or 30 cases. What do you think about this?
Okay, I will be honest with him because it's something we don't say. In Tunisia, we know we are in Tunisia. We are not in the United States. When you ask a place where they have to do the tests, tracing tests, and the population come to the hospital and say, this one you have to be, he wants to do a test, and we force them to do him the test. We'll find 100 people negative because they are not in the tracing, they are not, normally we don't do tests for them. This is one of the reasons. The second reason, we had a problem with Institut Pasteur in Tunis, which is doing the tests also. The 2 machines are doing the test was out for almost 2 to 3 days. One is the reason but the figure are coming now because yesterday we had a little bit more, but still we are in the range. We are not far from the range. Yesterday it was 13, or as far as I remember. Day before it was 5, day before it was 2. We are in the same range. If you accumulate them together, the mean is around, let's say, 10 per day. And it's going down, by the way, anyway.
Okay, understood. Thank you very much, Dr. Suhail. Our next question is from Abdelaziz Hamdain. Thank you, Abdelaziz, for sharing this question. And he's saying, the problem is in Tunisia is that we can't access our data easily.
Which data?
Is it true?
Which data?
Like sick people, the numbers every day, they're not very clear. We don't have access to that easily.
Depending on what you are looking for. For example, for the coronavirus, if you are talking about the COVID-19, Now everything is registered because it's very important to know exactly where we stand. But if you are talking about other diseases, normally it has to be done at the hospitals, and they reported for the infectious disease. There is some disease which are reported to the Ministry of Health, and you can find easily the data. For the other things, unfortunately, as I said in the beginning of my, I am one of the guys who was pushing to have the digital system in the hospital to make things more easy for everybody, for the doctor, for the patient, for the administration, for everybody. But it seems a lot of people, they don't want the past. They don't want it because it's kind of key. They have a key to play with a lot of things. Let's say, I don't know, go too much deep, because one of the fight of the corruption, to be honest with you, is the digitalization of everything, and a lot of people don't want it.
Yeah. They're afraid of transparency.
Yeah, exactly. I tell you my political side now. I'm talking about. I'm really angry about what happened in the last 10 years, because the revolution, normally we have to be in fight of corruption. You have to transparency. We have to see things completely transparent for everybody. And we had a big resistance about it. But now, these days, maybe we are going on it because they are pushed to do it. They don't have choice. They're thinking about their life, and they're thinking about their health. And when you touch the health of population, maybe now we are starting to do. I hope, anyway, one of the positive thing and the biggest thing we will do on this time will be the transparency with the new technology we are using, like what you are doing now, by the way.
Dr. Amin, do you have something to add?
No, I think I fully agree with him. Obviously, I worked in Tunisia more than 20 years ago as an intern and as a medical student. Obviously, I was in the hospitals, and that is the last time I dealt with paper hospital charts. Here, you know, fully paper. We still have some paper for minimal stuff, but the last 10 years we have fully digitized almost everything, and it is key to treating patients. It's access to information. I mean, what a doctor does, it's you know, our job is to take A plus B plus C and figure out Z, right? I mean, so if you give me A, then I figure out W instead of Z, you know, and so access to information is so difficult in the old way, and so it's detrimental to the health of patients. So a centralized system where you can find the labs, you can find the X-ray, you can find at least that kind of information, surgical reports, you know, endoscopy reports, etc., is key to being able to provide the best type of care.
And just to make, because I think the young people are interested by that, we are delayed because we don't have the basis. And now in the United States and some countries, they're working with the EA, the artificial intelligence, which can take the data and compare them and merge them. We are not in this situation. We are just still in the basics, unfortunately. We are starting now in the hospitals, but still we have a lot to do, by the way.
Yeah, and it's been now 7 or 8 years that even prescriptions are all electronic. So you know, I don't write prescription. I still have a prescription pad, you know, just for when the computer is broken, you know, kind of thing. We're not even allowed to write more than 5% of our prescriptions, so they keep an eye on it. If more than 5% is actually written, it's a problem. So I probably write, you know, I don't know, 5 a year, you know, so.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. We're running out of time, actually. So our last question for today is for both of you, which is, how can we balance between the social, medical, and the economic system? What can we do to balance between all of that? Hard question, I know.
Regarding COVID-19, meaning our situation?
Yes. Where we stand now.
I think what Dr. Suhail said quite a while back is the right thing. This dance, you know, I haven't heard the dance one, by the way, so I like it. You know, it's like tiptoeing, right? So you're jumping. That's the best we can do. So you try. My hope is, and I think there is, you know, some evidence, though we don't want to put too much hope on it, but it seems as the temperatures go up and the summer is coming, like any other season, a seasonal flu type thing, the infection rates are probably going to go down. So that's another thing that's going to buy us some time. Also, warmer countries seem to do generally better. Or warmer areas in the same country, like in the US, if you look, most of the problems stayed, you know, in the northern part of the country, the south, you know, and that's why, right? You're going to ask that question, why? Well, because sun is ultraviolet, right? That in and of itself kills the virus. I mean, that's how you can, N95 masks, we're actually cleaning them with ultraviolet and keeping them on the side in case we run out, we can reuse them. And so we actually invented the machine, you know, literally with Binghamton University biomedical engineers. So the sun, you know, helps that way. It also helps because, you know, you open the windows, you let new air in, you know, that kind of thing. So I'm hoping that will give us a little bit of a break, so everybody can kind of recover a little bit. But I'm really worried about the fall and the winter. That's what I'm worried about. Are we going to have a second peak, or are we going to be ready? Are we going to have a good treatment, a vaccine, something? So it's not clear yet. So the right answer is you give every part a little bit. So you give a little bit of opening on healthcare, or sacrifice, if you will, because that's what you're doing, right? So every time you allow the economy and society to open, you're putting more risk on the healthcare system. So, because that's what it is, right? I mean, the healthcare system is your one thing you can't break. If you overwhelm your healthcare system and you break it, you're done. You know, that's it. Then it becomes the 1918 Spanish flu, in the sense like you go back to that. You know, you can't take care of it. If you infect and kill a certain high percentage of your nurses, of your doctors, of your techs, you cannot take care of patients. So you have to protect your healthcare capacity, but at the same time open up the economy, and you watch it very closely and you see where you go. And you have, so the one other thing of the new normal, that's a kind of a little bit to the point that the other person had asked about data. We have to have good data, and you have to watch the data on a local level, on a regional level, on a national level, and react accordingly.
Exactly.
Thank you, Dr. Amin.
Thank you so much.
Dr.
Any questions so far?
In fact, Dr. Amin said everything. The situation today, maybe it's a little bit different because we still have a social thinking in Tunisia. It might be our history, our tradition, and I think we have to work on it a lot more than before. The situation is very difficult. That's why since the beginning, I was talking about the health problem. It's not, we have to look for the social problem also. It's very, very important. Situation, it's not like in some countries, like in Europe or the United States. We have people here who live day by day. If you don't take care of them, they will go to limit of starving, and we have to find a solution. I'm not, if I talk as a doctor, I will say, okay, we have to keep the lockdown for a while to be sure we are completely free, and to go to the R0 less than 1. R0 less than 1 means people infected, one people will infect less than one person, 0.5. 2 people will infect one person. This is limit when you flatten the curve. But I cannot talk as a doctor only. I have to think about these people who have a problem to get even food. And that's why in Tunisia, we are working in a social thing, and we have maybe to return a little bit in the past and to think, because we went too much in the past 30, 40 years to money-wise. We are thinking money, we are thinking business, we are thinking, and we forget the social part of our life, which is our tradition, by the way. And maybe you have to return a little bit on it. And even some population here, we are wealthy and they have a lot of business going on. They have to think, still today, they didn't understood the situation, because if the roof goes down, it will go down on everybody. And if you have thousands of people will die, they don't hope this, and I hope it never happen. But we have to share more than before. We have to think social more than before. We have to dance with this virus, and we open, we close, we open, we close. I agree with him. This is not scientific what we say, what he said and that I say. because you don't have based evidence. Level of evidence is very low, but the story of the sun, not the sun, the weather with this virus is less on the summer. I believe on it also, because all the coronavirus we know in the past, and there is one study made, it's going up in the end of autumn and winter, and it's going down and going up and going down. I hope this virus, it will be like that also. It's just a hope, because I don't have any proof, scientific proof, but it's real hope. By the way, just to go just for fun, I mean, I have mask. I use my mask when I go outside. I don't use them much, maybe 20 minutes or 30 minutes. You don't have much. I put them here in the garden. I put them on the sun just to clear them, because we have sun here in Tunisia, and we have a lot of ultraviolets. And it's the best way to make things clear and sterilized, in fact. That's all.
Like my grandma used to always say, "Hawi وشمس."
Hawi وشمس, exactly.
That's the key.
That's it.
Exactly, yes.
That's it.
Really.
Okay, gentlemen.
Okay, so
thank you.
do you have any questions? Any questions so far? I think
no, I think that's it. Yes, the word is yours, Mirbat.
So.
Yes.
Okay, great.
All right.
So thank you so much for sharing.
Pleasure. Thank you
for sharing this topic with us, Dr. Amin and Dr. Suhail. It was a pleasure to have you with us today.
Take care of yourself there, Dr. Amin.
Thank you. All right, you too. Everybody, stay safe and healthy, as they say. Ramadankum Mabruk.
Thank you very much.
Bye. Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
A special thanks to to the medical staff in Tunisia and all over the world. I would like thank everyone who joined us today. We hope you enjoyed